Hey guys, PrymalChaos here. Welcome to the channel. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Charismatic voice. I'm assuming most of you. Elizabeth has an amazing channel over there where she's a classically trained opera singer who's world class. And, she typically reacts to metal videos. And somewhere along the lines, she's managed to bump into Will Ramos from Lorna Shore. If you're not familiar with Lorna Shore, which a lot of you probably won't be, many of you probably are, he's a vocalist from a band that I think he's the second or third vocalist for that band. But they had a hit that came out and went super viral, not only amongst like the extreme metal community, but also outside of that, like on the fringes, people who probably wouldn't normally be exposed to such extreme metal, like black and deathcore is what they call the genre. I'm one of them. I wasn't familiar. I didn't know of anything that was quite that full on, to be honest with you, because it's really a tour de force, like it's a wall of sound kind of thing. But what's interesting is that it brought Will's abilities into more of the public domain. Will is one of these guys who's capable of producing an incredible amount of extreme vocalizations, right? From really deep gutturals to high goblin-y sort of sounds and fry screams and all of this sort of stuff. There's never a note really sung. It's always something pushing the boundaries of the human voice. He's not the first. A lot of people will tell you that he's influenced by Dickie Allen. Even the previous singer in the band has very similar techniques and range and stuff as well. There's a reason they picked him, because he's very similar to what they're used to. But Will isn't one of these guys who is just out there on his own. There are others, right? What's interesting about this video is that Elizabeth got together with Will as somebody who's a professional opera singer. She's obviously gone through this process many times herself, and so she was super curious about what would happen if you put a scope down Will's larynx through his vocal tract and see exactly what's happening when he's producing these vocalizations, because we don't really know, right? There's maybe one or two of these videos out there from the past that not many people are familiar with. Hopefully what this does, being that Lorna Shore is such a viral hit right now, this may give a lot of people some insight into what they're doing or what they perceive to be doing when they're producing, gutturals or screams or fry screams and things like that. Now, this is a really good documentary. It's about 52 minutes long. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Definitely support Elizabeth's channel because she is absolutely amazing. But what I've done is I've gotten through to about the 24-minute mark, and it looks like they're about to literally scope him right now. And I thought, it'd probably better to share this because I'm really curious myself what they're going to find. And I thought others might be too. Or if you've seen this, you might be interested to see other people's reactions to it as well and share that experience. So that's why I figured I'd share it with you guys as I go. Man, the allergies are crushing my spirit today. Oh boy. This one, I'm not sure what we're going to see. This is where this was going to get spicy because, a lot of times people talk about the dangers of extreme vocals. Any classical singer would listen to someone like Will and just go, oh, there's no way he's going to be singing for more than 12 months. There's going to be extreme damage. We've all been told that, this is the kind of thing that you shouldn't do. In fact, I've heard singing teachers say, even just the act of clearing your throat too hard can cause damage, and you should stay away from that and always be careful of that and always be supporting, your voice with warm teas and honey and all this sort of stuff. And it's all true. It's all useful information. But, when you have an outlier like Will, the suspicion is that going to be, look, he might be good for an album and a tour, but then that's going to be the end of his career. There's singing teachers out there or vocal teachers out there whose job it is to rescue singers like this when they've gone too far over the precipice. And they've caused so much damage, they have to relearn how to produce sound, right? That's common knowledge. Everybody knows that. Most of the guys from the Screamo era had to go and get training. There's people who specialize in that. But Will, I think, exists on a different level. I've watched him do his one takes and stuff like that, and he seems to be doing everything right. So I think that these guys are going to be really surprised. These are world-class vocalization, like speech pathology kind of experts, right? I think they're going to see some stuff they've never seen before. I think that they're going to find a relatively healthy vocal tract. I don't know that there won't be any damage. But I think most of that will probably be from the fact that he's just performing so much. There's got to be some kind of like wear and tear. I don't think it's going to be from bad technique though, because I've got a sneaking suspicion he's figured out a way around it somehow, because he just seems so successful in producing the sounds on, varied sounds. And he always just seems like there's no tension. He's always got good breath support. His dynamics is really well controlled. He never seems like he's screaming. He always seems like he's just comfortably producing a sound without any sort of tension. Like, you could make that same sound like like that fry sound, right? You could make that by also singing really loud and pushing that sound out through your vocal cords and really making them vibrate in an aggressive and distorted way. Or you can do what I just did then, which is just basically shaping the sound. I'm basically going, but I'm doing it in a different way with some different tonal shaping, and I'm getting like a, but you can see there's no neck tension. I'm not screaming loudly. Whenever I've seen him perform, that seems to be what's going on. I'm wondering if we're going to see any damage at all. I mean, there could be damage just from general, he could yell a lot and stuff like that. Who knows? We'll see. These guys are going to have the answers, but I want to share this part of it with you guys because I think it's important to put a spotlight on this, because everybody seems to think they know what's going on with extreme vocalist voices, and a lot of people make their careers around training people, but this is one of the very few times we're going to get to see some scientific input as opposed to just what seems to work, what we feel like works, not to diminish anyone who does that sort of training, because, they obviously know a lot more than I do about it. But I think the people who should be most interested in that are people who do teach people correct vocalization techniques, right? So here we are. Let's find out what's going on inside Will Ramos. Here we go.
I'm going to get some over here, okay? Okay. You are nice and numbed up now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I had this done the other day just for some sinus stuff.
Are you regretting this trip yet?
It's not great.
You're about to see
It's
it.
like a COVID
Look
test
at my
times a
freaking
million.
Boogers falling on my nose.
Yes.
It's not even boogers, it's medicine.
It's just lidocaine. It's also got phenylephrine in it, so it's going to make your sinuses feel nice and open.
He's also going to be
Or
feeling that
crying,
for
do
about
anything.
4 or 5 hours.
Don't say that.
I can't.
Don't say that.
I'm just kidding. I promise. The scope can come out at any point.
Cool.
Okay, so it's going to go in about that far.
What do I do with the
That's like,
boogies in there?
like if you look at the side of his head, it's back to his ear.
I promise you don't have that much. It's the decongestant that's making you kind of feel like that.
Yes.
So this is a little bit of lubricating jelly. It's just going to help it slide into your nose a little more comfortably.
Am I numb yet? Are we there?
You're there.
How do you know?
Because I know how quickly the medicine takes.
I love that you can see how nervous he is.
Okay, yeah.
Swallow.
Literally, as soon as you said that, I felt that.
Good. All right, so that's the strobe light. You can kind of see it flickering there on my glove.
Cool.
And here I'm just going to white balance this so that we get kind of as true of color as we can of the throat. All right, go ahead and put that microphone up on you. You guys good?
Yeah.
Ugh,
And take a look over here.
I feel you, brother.
Wow, swallowing is crazy.
Yep, swallowing is
How long
going to
does
feel
this go on
crazy.
for?
5 minutes. Oh, the numbing will last about 20.
It doesn't.
Good. So we're just inside your nose here.
It probably does, but you just get this
Going
weird
now at your palate.
medicine-y taste for
So
a couple of
this
hours.
is your soft palate. And you're going to go ahead and say E.
Now, fair warning, this is going to look real gross. Okay. Grow up,
Now,
people.
hold on, an S sound, like a sh or good, and breathe. Now we can see the passageway through his nose opening. Go ahead and alternate E-C, E-C, E-C.
E C E C E C E C E C E C E C E
How about
C
P,
E
P,
C
P, 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 P.
P P P P P P P P P.
Good. Hamper, hamper, hamper.
Hamper, 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 hamper.
So what they're doing now is they're doing a lot of different vowel sounds and consonant
Breathe
sounds
through your nose.
because each one of those requires you to have
Hopefully
different
the
tongue
worst part's
placement,
over
different
for you.
glottal
This is the
placements.
special part.
And so you can see, obviously, the reaction it was having
Thank
inside.
God.
Oh, there's the larynx.
Whoa.
Swallow again.
Oh.
Honey. You're doing really well. The magic school bus into the back of your throat. Good. All
Whoa,
right.
something's in there.
Yes.
Something's going on in there.
Beautiful. I'm just going to take a look around.
It's
here for a
fascinating
second.
watching
Go ahead,
everything
stick your
move
tongue
just
out
when
at
he's
me.
laughing and
Good. So we can see under here are the vallecula, the little spaces underneath that epiglottis. puff up your cheeks for
So that
me.
big bottom lip looking thing is the epiglottis.
Good. Go ahead and swallow.
The way I
real quick.
understand it. Again, not an expert.
I gave you so much numbing medicine.
Oh my
I think
shit.
there's the
Jesus
laryngeal
Christ.
folds,
Go ahead
maybe?
and puff up
I
your
can never
cheeks
remember the
again.
names of all the terminology.
Good. And then we can look in here into the piriform sinuses. Excellent. All of these beautiful spaces. Your tissue looks great. Breathe. All right. And I'm going to just touch that there. Good.
It's wild that all of this
My
happens
booger's a little bit
unconsciously.
One
There's
more
no
swallow for me.
muscular control. You can't
Good. Now I want you to
you
warm
can't
up
make that
swallow,
move just by
okay?
thinking about it. At
All
least
right,
at
go
least
ahead
I'm
and
not
say
sure that you
E.
can. It just all happens as part of like you know,
Good. And bring that
the
microphone
part of your
down
brain
just a
that
little bit
controls
this time, okay?
vocalizations and
I don't want
sound
you to
just
do that high
automatically
now.
just
Really loud.
does everything in
As high as I
concert.
go?
It's amazing.
Good. And hold it high and loud, and then go high to soft.
Like high and loud, so.
Yep. Good. Can you
So
say
it's
high
important
and
to point
soft?
out too, the camera itself only has a frame rate of about 30 frames per second. So what you're not seeing a real accurate portrayal of the vibration of the vocal cords. You're seeing like a truncated version of that. It would typically be a lot faster than the camera can pick up.
Beautiful. And now I want you to suck in. You're going to do this. Go. Yeah, good.
Inward singing. Any Tenacious D fans out there will know what that's about.
Good. And just breathe really softly. Now we're going to do that. Beautiful. Okay, I am done with all the boring stuff.
Cool.
You guys go to town. I'm just going to hold this and try and stay as far out of the way as I can.
Do I still tell you when I'm swallowing?
No, I'll be out of the way for the most part. I'm not as close to your vocal folds this time.
Fucking God. That felt crazy. I was like, this is kind of cool, but also
Really
kind of
uncomfortable.
horrifying at the same time.
Wait till you see it.
Oh, God.
I'm sympathetically swallowing.
Big squeal vocal fry.
Amanda's shaking her head. That's because she
Well,
just
just
saw
move over
something
here and
totally
hit this
mind-boggling.
brightness button. Go to the X loom. Yep. To your left. That one. Yep. Hit that button. Let's get it brighter. Ah, that's better. Hold on
feels
one
crazy.
second, Will. Go ahead and swallow. Yep. Okay, good. Go for it.
Wow. Oh. It's just contorting in a really unusual way. I wonder what the function of that is. I wonder what causes
Not
that.
comfortable with the scope that close. but
Definitely
yeah.
not, but that's cool. We're out
Something
here.
different. Okay.
Want to do pig squeal false chords?
That's interesting. It seems like the two
Anything else?
different pig squeals he did seem like they functionally are exactly the
Yeah,
same.
just like other
He referred to one of them as a false chord pig squeal, and one of them was a fry screen pig squeal, I think. And it seems like anything that's different appears to be happening above the larynx. But that twisting motion is insane. That's not supposed to
Cool.
do that.
How far he canters to his left and then pulls the epiglottis to the opposite side is amazing to change the shape.
Oh, wow, okay. Oh, I see.
Cool.
Do you want to do that one more time?
It's hard to tell because there's so much motion in the camera, but what they're saying is that the epiglottis, the bottom lip looking thing, is pulling one way, and the larynx is sort of twisting in, and they're sort
Cool.
of pulling, and maybe that's how he's getting that sort of looseness, I guess. It looks like it's contracting, but what it's doing is it's shrinking everything down, so everything can, it's not under as much tension, maybe.
Cool. So a slide was what?
Some side.
We'll do it for like mids. We'll go. I guess what you would consider a guttural. So. Oh, that's deep.
Sorry.
You're good.
Hold on 1 second. Swallow for me.
Wow, this is difficult.
Uh-huh.
It's weird with the thing in your
Swallowing is definitely crazy. How we doing?
Good.
Are you waiting for me? Oh, I thought I'm waiting. I look at you. I'm like, all right.
Any other gutturals you want to do?
We'll go to the. Actually, I really want to try the. Before we start doing more gutturals, the tea kettle screams.
kettle,
I would
okay.
love to see what that looks like.
Awesome. Tea kettle it is.
This might be really
If
crazy.
you notice,
I don't
what
even
looks
know
like two
what's
balls
going. I
beneath the
can't. I barely
epiglottis,
feel what's
those are
going on
lineal
here. So.
tonsils. Okay.
Whoa, whoa. That feels crazy with that thing in there.
I don't.
Oh, and the numbing, I feel so much mucus back there.
I wish that you knew what my heart was doing right now. How cool this is.
All right, do I gotta get some mucus out of here?
You're good. You're just on my scope.
I'm sorry.
Do it. You do you.
That genuinely sounds like a tea kettle. What the hell? But yeah, see how, in this case, everything's constricting, right? And it kind of makes sense. It's kind of like
You ever
the
seen
airflow is not
anything
only
like
coming
this?
through the vocal cords, but also it's got
yeah.
to squeeze past all of everything, all the other
Cool.
tissue just contracting as well.
And then we're back. And here we go. Normal. Tea kettle.
I wouldn't even know how to begin to make that sound.
Freaking cool. My face is hurting from smiling.
Cool. This feels so crazy. I feel like I have like a lump in my
You
throat.
literally have a black
Woo!
cord with a camera on it.
Cool. Oh, a little deep, little deep.
Okay, sorry.
You're good, you're good. All right.
I have, take your option. We have fries, tunnel vocals, tube and throat singing. This is Hellsound Goblin.
Oh, let's do tube and throat singing into a normal just scream. So.
Wow, you just jumped straight into that, right? That's wild. Look how much everything's just oscillating, right? See the difference there? Like when... So I'm just going to jump back a little bit. Because when he's doing that low, sort of more guttural sounding throat singing, everything's just loose and the entire apparatus is just oscillating. But then when he takes up to that more nasally sounding, yeah, sort of one, it's more of a traditional note, like a sung note sort of structure, I guess, of how he's producing the sound. Be interesting to see if he gets the overtones happening. I can't imagine how hard this is with that thing sitting in your throat. Like anyone who's ever tried to sing, and if you feel like you've got some mucus or something in the way, you sort of, it's hard to produce the sound. You got to kind of sing around stuff. So the fact that he's gotten this far and been able to produce these sounds with this camera down there, just feeling like it's hanging down the back of your throat, because you really, as much as they've numbed him, you do feel the pressure of it. It's really weird. But yeah, let's take a look. Just have a look at those oscillations and how different they are. So look at everything's moving. You can hear the overtones as well too. If you listen really carefully, the interesting thing about tube and throat singing is typically you have the ability to produce two notes simultaneously. And so you'll have this like a harmonic resonance, and you'll have that low sort of sound, and then you'll have this sort of whistle, but it's not actually a sung note so much as it's the harmonics. Typically any sound that you hear is made up of a harmonic series. So you'll have all of these different octaves being resonated and produced, and typically you hear them all as one sound. The magic of throat singing is that you somehow manage to break some of those harmonics away and you can hear them separately. And the real genius of it is if you get someone who's a true professional, they can actually modulate that harmonic separately to the lower fundamental sound. So you can technically sing harmonies with yourself. I've heard people sing melodies just with that oscillating harmonic. You know, it might be hard for people who don't understand sound and what to listen for. You might not be able to hear it, but Because I'm assuming this isn't exactly the best experience, possibly that even Will can do. But when you hear someone who can really nail this, it's phenomenal because you can hear somebody singing two different notes and harmonizing with themselves. Just see if you can pick it out. You'll be able to hear like this way up there. There'll be like a separate sort of sound that you can sort of separate. There it is. It almost sounds like phasing or flanging if you know what that sound means. There it is.
Cool.
Freaking awesome.
So I guess we'll go to just a normal average.
I love how these guys are geeking out on it. Oof. Again, it seems anything guttural related requires that sort of, for him anyway, that contortion, that twisting to the I guess the left. And I think that what function that serves is it's somehow he's basically squeezing it all in. So like if you can imagine, I'm trying to think of an example of what it would be like if you think about a trampoline, right? If you had a trampoline, but imagine the mat is split in the middle. There's still a lot of tension there holding the two edges of the cut seam next to each other. You couldn't jump on it, obviously, but like you think about it, it's all being pulled quite taut. And then say you blow air through that, it's going to vibrate to a certain frequency. Same as that's exactly kind of what a larynx is, except the ability to increase or lower the tension, right? Now, imagine if you got the frame of the trampoline and squished it, and then all of that material in the middle just starts becoming floppy and stuff like that. It's not going to vibrate the same. It's going to be loose and flappy and stuff like that. I have a feeling that what's happening there is he's two, are they laryngeal folds, whatever it is, that sort of control that tension. He's sort of like collapsing the whole apparatus down so that his vocal cords can just sit slack and just oscillate really loosely and give you a highly distorted sound without tension, Yeah, and that's why it's almost like he's relaxing it. You might think that when you go to make a rah kind of sound like a high scream or something, that everything's going to tension up and it's going to get real tight in there and stuff like that. He seems to be doing the exact opposite. He's loosening everything and relaxing it and just letting the air flow through and sort of flap around as opposed to vibrate, And I think that's the function of that torsion, is to sort of take that high pressure sort of vocal fold thing and just collapse it so it becomes loose and floppy,
Tonsils, lingual tonsil.
Area-pagodic folds
Yeah.
vibrating mainly.
Holy
and
cow.
Completely turned
Yeah,
so that they go vibrating opposite direction.
amazing.
Tell me more good things about myself.
You are amazing.
Can you give it to me? All right.
You are a unicorn, my friend.
All right. So let's see. We did some of that. What else you got on that list? Let's do some closed mouths.
Yeah, let's try your closed mouth.
That's interesting. Notice the function of the larynx doesn't shift for closed mouths. The sound just exits through the nose instead of the mouth. Okay. Man, he must have good sinuses, because if I try to do that, I just have back pressure. That's part of the reason I got scoped the other day, is I'm going to have to get face surgery. I got to get some tissue taken out of my sinuses because I have trouble breathing. It's affecting my sleep, all that sort of stuff. So if I tried to... Yeah, I can sort of do it, but there's so much back pressure there, it kind of impedes it.
Cool. I don't know if that looks any different, but it.
What I'm seeing so far is that, like, outside of like just the strange arrangement that his vocal cords are making, it seems like all of his sort of lower guttural sounds are produced exactly the same way. You know, we talk about like, oh, this is a false chord thing, or this is a fry scream, or this is a whatever. It seems like for the most part, whenever he's doing anything that sounds like a lower sound like that, or a modified version of that, it's the same technique for what's happening down here. I think he's just shaping things tonally with different mouth positions, elongating the neck, resonating up through the nasal cavity instead. And so the sound box, like essentially like the, you know, if you think about like a saxophone, right? A saxophone has a mouthpiece with a reed. When you blow through the reed, it vibrates and slaps against the mouthpiece of the saxophone. Then after that, that's when the saxophone sound gets created, because all you're really doing is making a vibrating sound. Then that gets bounced around through the horn shape through to the bell, and you're manipulating the amount of air escaping, you know, via pressing the keys, right? So really the sound of a saxophone is all of those things in conjunction. But if you get a saxophone mouthpiece and just blow through it, it doesn't sound like a saxophone. His larynx is essentially that noisemaker that then the rest of that saxophone vocal tract will then manipulate to make the sound of a saxophone, right? Or the sound that we find familiar of saxophony. And so I think what's happening is his vocal cords are acting like generally just a noisemaker that he's then tone shaping. The exception would be when he was doing the higher sort of, what did he call them? I can't think what he called it, but it was essentially that higher sort of goblin-y scream, sort of, the kettle sounds. In that case, he was, everything was collapsing in. He was squeezing the entire vocal tract down to a very narrow, shallow shape, which makes sense because it's more of like a high pressure sound, whereas any of the sort of guttural stuff is like loose and open, right?
I don't know, but just as I'm closing my mouth, and that's what makes it. Oh God.
Your numbing might be wearing off on you.
That's good. That's good.
You're okay?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
This is hell sound.
That's interesting. Now that he's sort of putting more of like a vowel sound to it, or like some sort of a language sort of thing to it, that epiglottis is moving in a lot closer.
It's more of like the pitch goblin, but.
You're going to hate me. Do that again, though, and I'm going to try and get closer. If you don't tolerate it, I'll back up, okay?
From your fingertips and wrapping to its pleasure.
See, that's interesting because that's a higher sound. He's still got the distortion there. He's still doing the same sort of distortion thing, but the higher sound means that epiglottis is closing up that sort of tunnel a little bit so that it's sort of compressing that sound. And then he's sort of manipulating with a Gollum type sound up the top. That's a goblin-y sort of sound. But, you know, when you think about how Gollum talks, a lot of that is sort of compression through up into the nasal cavity and sort of pushing that back of the tongue up into the back palate. So you sort of, you know, really I'm just going, but I'm squeezing it up here. It's all up sort of behind the tongue, you know. And so, I mean, visibly the only difference there is the epiglottis is pulling back to sort of shallow up that sort of resonant cavity a little bit.
That is like a commercial. With like the light flickering, the strobe light.
Isn't that a Sesame Street song?
That's one of our songs.
So good.
Oh, we're deep. It's cool. It's cool.
I don't think you did ton of vocals yet.
No, that's gonna be crazy. We can also, I'm gonna do some goblins without the pitch.
Okay, yeah.
that's pure chaos in there right now. But I feel like I can still see that torsion happening.
Tunnels.
It's hard with the epiglottis getting in there.
Oh, that feels crazy with the mucus. I feel like I need to clear it, but
It's amazing how much it snaps back into place so instantly, right?
And I'm being unsuccessful. That's why you're feeling it more.
gotcha.
So
Yeah, she's sort of getting an angle there. We can see it's still, the torsion is still there.
I'm gonna do some false chord versions of that.
See? Exactly the same technique. So to him, he's experiencing false chord as something slightly different.
how the heck you're tolerating me getting this close while you're making these sounds is beyond me.
It's beyond me as well, but we're just going for
You
it.
just
So
feeling it.
I may have a
You
fat
are-
booger in my nose,
You
but
don't.
thank God.
You
Don't look.
No one can see your nose.
Don't
You're
look. Everyone's
blocking
looking.
it.
I told nobody to look. Everyone looks. What else we got?
Pitch pulse pulse. Did we do that yet? I don't think we did that.
Notice how the whole apparatus shifts when Will articulates a consonant. It takes a ton of coordination and practice to find continuity in sounds between articulations. That's what I mean. As soon as language starts to come into it, like anyone will tell you, it's not that hard to produce a sort of sound, right? You can learn to do that. But then it's a whole different story when somebody hands you a sheet of lyrics and says, okay, now sing that. Because then, you know, you've got to change your breathing and you've got these explosive consonant sounds and different vowel sounds. And you tend to sort of throw a little bit of sort of melodic component, even though in the world of like deathcore and metalcore and stuff like that, it's not really all that. It's more of a cadence really than a melodic shift, right? But you know, doing like a and focusing on that is different to like a because suddenly you have to start using or engaging different parts of your anatomy that you would use to talk. Everything's moving around in there when you're talking. And so things can get in the way and you can get weird back pressure problems, and then suddenly things can start to feel like they're rubbing or it's a bit coarse. So that's where the challenge is, right? And you can see it right there. As soon as he starts to engage anything to do with language, suddenly the whole game shifts, right? Before we were getting really clear images of the vocal tract and how it was contorting, but now the epiglottis is really getting involved and everything else is collapsing in, and it's really hard to see with the bird's eye view.
Cool. Do you want to try to? Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, 1 second.
Nah. I don't know. This is gonna be like, this is gonna be crazy. I've never done this, so just so you know, we're kind of doing
we're
it.
playing.
I feel like I'm in vocal school and we're doing this at the
You
same
are
time. So. Nicey skies, nicey skies, low blow, yeah, no, I don't know the words. Clouds of white, the blameless indeed. Woo!
That's wild.
Go ahead, swallow.
I think that's all the ones.
Swallow again.
Woo!
You know, can we get him a little sip of water, actually? You're just getting dry back here.
Do I sip with?
You can sip with this in your mouth. We'll watch it as it goes down. Here's Will as he swallows.
I don't know if I
his
want to see this.
water. Here it comes.
Oh, there we go. Nice and quick.
Oh, I didn't hit record on the camera.
Oh,
You're fine.
I don't believe
was
you.
like,
I don't believe
"God."
anything you say anymore.
I didn't hit the record.
Thank
My
you.
record guy. Do you want to try and sing the chorus or something? I don't know.
Oh
how-
yeah, that's right. We were gonna do that.
Let's just watch something a little dynamic.
Oh, also we didn't do that.
I'd love to see a scope comparatively of somebody just
Crazy wind
singing,
up in my nose.
you know, a regular chorus
I have a
in a song that's
really
melodic,
nasally
like
scream
a
that's like
typical,
high,
what we consider
which is probably
singing
why I'm
sort of
having
sound.
trouble right now.
Just to see if there's this
Woo,
much
feels
chaos
great.
going on. You can see there probably is, because even when he's talking, everything's bouncing around like crazy.
That's as good as that's gonna
Anything
be
else
with
you
this
wanna
thing in my
see?
nose.
I think we're good.
You're done. You are
Oh
a champ.
man.
Don't look at me! Don't look at me!
Well, being able to scope Will was probably one of the most unique experiences I've ever had as a speech language pathologist.
Wow.
It's not often that you get someone so vocally talented to come in and be able to capture online, live, all of the artistic behaviors that they're capable of doing within their larynx. I was talking to Will at one point when I was explaining the anatomy and saying how isolated in speech language pathology in speaking it can be when we look at the larynx and we forget about the capabilities and the capacities of this wonderful organ to quickly switch between so many different patterns and create this beautiful sound on an entirely different spectrum than what we hear in a speaking voice. And I think oftentimes we assume that things like metal or screaming or harsh vocalizations leads to damage or irritation, edema, erythema, all of these sort of
Nodules.
of words or semantic language to suggest that someone is harming themselves with a certain vocalization pattern type. And I think today we saw something so polar opposite of what the assumption has been, that this person not only is capable of harsh vocalization, but in one of the most safe ways that I've ever observed by utilizing different tissues, taking breaks, phonatory breaks, using his breath, all of these techniques that he intricately uses together simultaneously in seconds to create a sound that by a lot could be assumed as painful or damaging, and it wasn't anywhere near that. In fact, you saw someone with vocal health superior to anyone. You could have picked him off the street and he could have been a novice voice person and we would have thought nothing. He didn't have excessive muscle tension, which is something that I think a lot of people would assume with this type of vocalization. He didn't have nodules, lesions, lumps, bumps anywhere in the system.
That is wild.
In fact, the mucus that I think we saw was the result of the numbing that we had done and him not being able to maybe swallow as frequently as he would have liked. We saw someone with completely normal vocal health tissue doing incredibly demanding vocalizations. And I've honestly never seen anything quite like it.
If I see nasty things,
So what she just said there could be one of the most important and dangerous things that anybody's ever said about extreme vocals. She pointed out that in Will's case, he is capable of producing some of the most hellacious and disturbing sounds, especially to a singing teacher would look at that typically and just go, oh my God, that's terrible. That is awful. That's going to destroy him. This is the choice he's making. It's very dangerous to do these things. And then she's saying that he has absolutely not only no signs of like things like nodules or things that present themselves at the extreme end of damage, right? He doesn't even have the wear and tear that you would expect from a normal singer, you know? And that's interesting because it really changes the perspective of anybody who watches this who had preconceived notions about harsh vocals and how damaging they are. Oh, clearly there's exceptions to the rule, right? But I also think it's dangerous because Will is a bit of a unicorn in that he's capable of doing this. He's discovered a path where, you know, he can do this with minimal or no damage. But that doesn't mean that you can. Or it doesn't mean that whatever path you take, you're going to end up in the same place. There's a really good chance that if you go into this half-cocked and without proper training and instruction and, you know, singing through tension and things like that, that you will damage your voice, as hundreds of mainstream acts or mainstream in their genres have discovered when their singer can no longer sing, right? There is danger there. This isn't an open season pass for you to just be like, I can scream my guts out and it won't cause any damage. You know, when you think about nodules, I was thinking about this earlier. When I think about vocal nodules, I think about some of the greatest singers in the world who had vocal nodules. And I'm not talking about metal singers. I'm talking about, your Mariah Careys of the world. There's like, name a singer. You know, maybe name 10 singers. I reckon you'll probably find 2 out of those 10 that have probably had to have some sort of intervention as far as like them having to get nodules either surgically removed, or you can sort of rest your voice for weeks and they can disappear. Essentially, they're like a callus, I believe. The way I understand it, they're like a callus from things rubbing. And the problem with that is that surface of the anatomy becomes hardened and lumpy, and therefore they don't connect properly anymore. They sort of bumpy. And so the air comes through and you can't make notes. You get breaks in your voice when you try and sing. You get like a lot of airflow sort of problems and things like that. Again, I'm not these people. That's just the way I understand it from my perspective. It's probably wrong. Everybody seems to make assumptions. And I don't want you guys to think that I know any more than you do about this stuff, because I don't, right? But take what she said with a grain of salt. In fact, reframe what she said into, Will Ramos can do this without causing any sort of damage or harm, rather than saying extreme vocalists can do this, because both are true, but you should exercise extreme caution when taking this journey further, right? Because there's a pretty good chance, based on just the averages, that you're going to end up not in the camp of Will Ramos, right? So be very, very careful out there, and you know, take what she said with a grain of salt, even though she's absolutely correct.
What are you trying to say?
Nasty.
Right now,
That looks absolutely disgusting.
this is the opening
I
to
get
your.
it, though. I get it.
This is the opening to your stomach down here, a muscle called the cricopharyngeus, and that muscle relaxes to allow food,
Cricopharyngeus.
mucus, water, etc. to go down. So it doesn't play really any role other than for you incorporate that into a lot of the postures and maneuvers that you do, that spacing. Okay.
Interesting.
So here is you as you start to do some of your work.
Do I still tell you when I'm stalling?
Oh, that looks insane. Why does it look like that?
That's so crazy. I was like,
So this is you speaking, right? There's movement,
at the same time.
vibration of the vocal folds.
That's interesting. When he's talking, it's engaging the epiglottis as well. Like we were talking about when he started to, rather than just making raw sounds and started to rah, 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 we saw a lot more movement of the epiglottis. And I think, again, it's when language comes into play.
And closing them.
Big squeal, vocal 5.
So those are your ventricular folds, those false vocal folds, arytenoids, and then the aryepiglottic fold.
Arytenoids.
Whoa, it looks like I'm doing one of these. Like this thing is coming in.
Oh yeah, it's like you're tilted this way, but pulling all of your tissue that way.
Whoa! It's literally
Yeah, so
like
really, I mean, it is. If that's false chords, then that is all false
there's
chord
an asymmetry
work,
created
regardless. It's all false
between the
chord.
left and the right of various body parts there. And now what I'm really wondering is that every person have that ability to make it asymmetric.
Huh. Wow. He's heterochromia? Is that right? Where he's got the 2 different colored eyes. Very interesting.
Because for him to be able to get that strong sound and to get 2 tissues going against each other like this, he had to twist the anatomy a little bit. And I don't know if I can do that, and I don't know if all of us can do that, or whether we're born with sort of a special way of making things slightly asymmetric. Yeah.
That's so cool.
I feel
I'm just thinking about it now. When you think about like those the false chords, right? How they sort of sit in front of like you got your actual vocal cords here, and then you've got this over here. These are your false chords. I'm wondering if that twisting action, that's going the wrong way, hang on. the twisting action where they're coming like this. I wonder if there's any other way for them to engage, because they're sort of sitting out there like this. At no point did I ever see them just collapse in and start like reenacting the motion of just the normal vocal cords. They sort of crunch together over to the side. And I'm wondering if maybe if they scoped a few more people who can do like false chord stuff, they would find that's a common thing. Because it seems like in order to get them to merge together, maybe they sort of scrunch up into a ball. You know, that's what that torsion sort of action is. I'm really interested to see if these guys do any follow up of this, and maybe Elizabeth might keep us in the loop. If you know, because I'd imagine this will open like the floodgates of more extreme vocalists going in there. I'd love to see Devin Townsend getting scoped. You know, anyone who's capable of producing a wide range of sounds. You know.
So good when you just say
Well,
that.
you're saying that, but we haven't left yet. They might dissect you just for something.
Not too late.
Yeah, I think it's just lingual tissue, right? The tonsil.
That asymmetry, how much of that is the position of the scope and how much is that actual asymmetry?
That's a really good question. Part of it, what the question is how much of this is asymmetry from my camera angle, right? Because you and I weren't always square on, you have to manipulate and move.
Right.
And how much actually do you have natural asymmetry? And I think it's both. I think he's got a little bit, like I said, of the cantering or the tilting to his left just naturally, even at rest if we go back to kind of here, he's centered, but anytime he voices, he pulls just a little bit there to his left side. And then the epiglottis, he swings and pulls muscle and tissue the opposite, the counter opposite way of where his arytenoid cartilages are going. And that's
Maybe the
side that he
epiglottis
pulls his
shifting to the
epiglottis
say
as
the
well
right
when he narrows
pushes the left side,
the vocal tract.
the right side of his false chords over, and allows that all to collapse.
What she said.
These are all normal anatomical things, structures that your body incorporates and uses as part of the tissue that it's vibrating to create some of your sounds.
So I'm wondering if I got my tonsils removed for some crazy reason,
Interesting question.
tonsillectomy or whatever it's called, would the whole scream completely change? Because what you're saying is like I use my tonsils, I guess, for part of my tonality.
It's a great question. Yes. The simple answer is anytime that you're going to remove a tissue in the back of your throat, it's going to change your sound a little bit. How dramatic is that? That depends on each person.
I see.
And it comes down to, again, what are you utilizing? Is majority of your sound coming from that? Absolutely not. Is it playing a role? Sure. What is that contribution? I don't know what percent or if we could even capture that necessarily. Yeah.
We're here for science.
But enlarged tonsils or tonsils
This dude's
that
gonna
can
build a
infect
model
with
of Will
lot
Ramos's
virus
vocal
can
tract
cause
and just,
constant issues for people.
like,
that
die trying to
consequence
understand
is
how
far
it
greater
works.
than them losing a little bit of their sound quality.
Right.
So for them, it outweighs, right? The benefit outweighs the cost for them. But it's definitely a consideration that most people who are professional voice users take into consideration. Is that something you need? Absolutely not. You're
Thank
healthy.
God.
This is all normal. Nothing that we're seeing here other than being absolutely amazing in the abilities and performances
Thank you.
is just brilliant. It's normal though.
Well, that was a great experiment. I'm glad you invited me to be part of this. It was really a joyful thing to see how many different ways sounds can be produced in our airways. And from a scientific point of view, the thing that to me is most exciting is how many different sound sources can you engage at the same time. You know, we have the true vocal folds and we have the false folds, and then we have the epiglottic folds as they're called, and then we have the tip of the epiglottis rattling around against the back wall of the pharynx. And all of these things can be coordinated as we have seen. And the thing that I question the most is how can all of these sound sources be engaged simultaneously with the same air pressure? Because we have only so much lung pressure, and we have to divide that lung pressure across these different sound sources. As they go
Interesting. I never
together.
thought of that. That's interesting.
And Will did such a beautiful job of coordinating all that tissue in motion. It's going to take us years to analyze that and to try to model it with a computer.
It's mind blowing, and I think especially in outside of the arts, you know, with people who just utilize their voice for speaking, oftentimes are naive to the fact that the voice, the body, the human body can do these types of things. And the big question now still remains, we saw it, but how does Will do that? you know, how do we begin to understand the control
We still don't know.
that a person who's vocalizing has? You know, he can even talk to you about it. I don't exactly know. I know I'm doing something along this, that, or the other. And you have people like Dr. Ingo Tietze who are able to sort of model.
They really need to get in there people from all over the world
how
who
the
do
system
different
might
things. Like get in some
possibly be
people
capable
who
of
do throat
creating
singing,
this acoustic output, the sound
you know,
that we
like
perceive
experts
as
in
voice
throat
or
singing, and get,
speech.
you know, people who
I think it's
like from cultures that
amazing to
make
think of
very
where
different
the field is gonna
vocalizations.
be
Like
able
there's
to
certain
go with
Indian
the
tribes that
incorporation
make
of
essentially
talents like Will,
vocalizations
allowing
that
us
just
to
sounds like
study
pops
from
and
him,
whistles.
to
It'd be
learn
really
from
interesting to
him,
see what's
to
happening
being
with them
open
as well.
to doing
You know?
crazy, goofy things with a scope in his nose. And Elizabeth for sort of bringing these two worlds together through the charismatic voice. You know, it speaks to the arts.
Go
and
check out
science.
Elizabeth's channel.
And we have to
You
do
probably
both.
already
We
have.
need these worlds to come together to understand, to learn from one another, and maybe begin to hit the tip of the iceberg on what is human vocalization.
That was really interesting. That was super interesting. Wow. Definitely go watch the entire thing. It's a lot of fun actually. Up until this point, it's not all that serious. So you know, you get some good insight into who everybody is, and stuff like that prior to thing. But there's also a section before this where they go into the lab and they see, you know, some of Dr. Ingo's things where he builds models of vocal tracts to sort of really look at things on a large scale and see what different things oscillating make different sounds. You know, I didn't understand it. It seemed like he does. And obviously Dr. Amanda is amazing as well. But more than anything, I think we all owe an incredible debt of gratitude not only to Will for putting his body on the line for science, and also the guys at Charismatic Voice, Elizabeth particularly, for sort of coming up with this concept and making it happen, because I think we all learned a lot about extreme vocals, but also just vocals in general and what's possible, and maybe burn through some misconceptions that we might have had. And that's been really important. I think it's probably one of the more important vocal videos I've ever seen. So thanks again, Charismatic Voice. Thank you guys for watching. If you feel like I've brightened your day at all, feel free to support the channel just by buying me a coffee. I'll leave a link in the description. And like, share, follow, subscribe. I won't run an ad on this one because I don't feel like it's my place. I'm just trying to highlight their video. So thanks again, guys, for checking in, and I'll catch you in the next one.